The house was silent, too silent, and the note on the counter would shatter everything I thought I knew about my marriage. My hand shook as I gripped the paper, each word feeling like a knife twisting deeper. Caribbean cruise with Hannah. Mom's joining us. She deserves a break. Victor needs care. You're staying. Back Monday. Brady. I had to read it 3 times before my brain would accept what my eyes were seeing. This wasn't happening. We'd planned this Thanksgiving for months. A raspy voice cut through my shock. He's not returning until Monday, correct? I spun around. Victor stood in the doorway, leaning on his cane. But his eyes, those penetrating blue eyes, weren't the eyes of a feeble old man. They were sharp, alert, knowing. No, I whispered. Nobody is. He nodded slowly as though he'd been expecting this exact scenario. Left you holding the bag. That's Brady's specialty. I came for Thanksgiving dinner. Instead, I found abandonment, betrayal, and an unlikely ally who would change everything. 30 minutes earlier, I'd arrived with my car loaded with gifts and pie ingredients. The house should have been alive with warmth. Turkey roasting, football playing, family laughing. Instead, silence, cold air, and Brady's stepfather watching me with those uncomfortably perceptive eyes. I don't understand this. My voice cracked as I collapsed into a kitchen chair. His mother was hosting. Everyone was supposed to be here. I tried Brady's number again. Voicemail. 4th attempt, same result. Victor moved to the refrigerator, his movements deliberate. It's been quiet all week, like a graveyard. They departed Tuesday. He poured water with trembling hands. Didn't even stock food. I hope you brought groceries. I hadn't. Just my contributions to what should have been a feast, not provisions for survival. My phone buzzed. Instagram notification. Brady's sister had tagged him. What I saw knocked the breath from my lungs. The photo showed my husband toasting champagne with another woman on a cruise ship deck. My entire marriage was a lie. Brady. His arm wrapped around Hannah, his just a colleague from work. Champagne glasses raised, smiling like he hadn't just destroyed everything. The caption, New Beginnings Caribbean Getaway with Brady Mitchell and family. I scrolled frantically. More photos. Brady's mother sipping cocktails, looking perfectly relaxed. Brady and Hannah at what looked like a romantic dinner, gazing into each other's eyes. Timestamp 2 days ago. This wasn't spontaneous. They'd been planning this while I bought presents and requested time off work. Discovered something interesting? Victor studied my expression. I turned my phone toward him, my hand numb. They're on a cruise, with Hannah. The one he claimed was nothing. Victor's expression didn't change. Hannah's been around at least 3 months. She calls here frequently. Pleasant voice, horrible laugh. My stomach dropped. You knew. I notice plenty they assume I don't. He tapped his temple. Mine's still razor sharp, despite what Brady tells people. Then I checked our bank account. What I found made the affair look like a minor betrayal. With shaking fingers, I opened our banking app. 3 days ago, $5,200 withdrawal. Our entire savings, gone. The money we'd been saving for our house. The house Brady promised we'd start searching for after the holidays. He took everything, I whispered, showing Victor the screen. Victor didn't even blink. They've been doing the same to me for years. Small amounts here and there. For your care, Victor. Meanwhile, they lower the heat to save money. My medications arrive late, and Elaine buys another designer purse. I felt physically ill. This wasn't just a ruined holiday or even an affair. This was calculated, deliberate, cruel abandonment. My phone rang. Leah, my best friend calling with Thanksgiving wishes. I silenced it. I couldn't explain this humiliation yet. There's leftover soup, Victor offered quietly. Not exactly a feast. I looked around. Dirty dishes piled in the sink. Takeout containers littering the counters. They hadn't even cleaned before abandoning him. Something hardened inside me. They wanted to leave me with a burden. Instead, they gave me an opportunity for justice. No, I said firmly, grabbing my coat. We deserve better than soup. I'm going to the store. We're having a proper Thanksgiving meal. Victor looked surprised, then genuinely pleased. Haven't had a home-cooked meal in months. At the grocery store, my mind spun. How long had Brady been planning to leave? Was our entire 5-year marriage just convenient until something better appeared? I mechanically selected a turkey breast, potatoes, vegetables, barely aware of the other desperate last-minute shoppers. When I returned, Victor had cleared the counter. He sat at the table with a stack of papers. "What's this?" I set down the groceries. "Evidence," he said, and everything I thought I knew was about to change again. Victor pushed a folder toward me, his eyes suddenly steely. "Bank statements, medical records, documented neglect. I've been tracking them for months. Brady and Elaine think I'm just waiting to die. They don't realize I've been watching them drain my accounts while providing the absolute minimum care." I scanned the papers, detailed notes, account statements showing suspicious transfers, medical recommendations that had been ignored. "Why show me this?" My hands trembled. Victor leaned forward, looking less frail. "Because you've been wrong too, Jade, and because I'm running out of time." He tapped a medical report. "Terminal cancer, 3 months maximum." I sat heavily. "Victor, I'm so sorry." He waved away my sympathy. "Don't be sorry. Be strategic." His intensity caught me off guard. "They think they left you with a burden. Actually, they've given us an opportunity." "Opportunity for what?" Victor's thin lips curved into a transformative smile. "For justice." He slid an envelope across the table. "Inside is my real will, not the one Brady and Elaine expect to inherit." I stared at him. This man I barely knew, but with whom I suddenly shared profound understanding. We'd both been deceived and discarded by the same people. Outside, late afternoon shadows stretched across an empty driveway where family should have gathered. Inside, an unexpected alliance was forming. "Shall we begin?" he asked. Those 3 words would change everything. "Yes," I heard myself say, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "Let's begin." Victor's proposition was clear. Help him document the neglect and betrayal. Assist with his final arrangements. In return, he'd ensure I was protected financially. The family who abandoned us would lose everything they expected to inherit. But first, I needed to understand what we were working with. Victor led me to a small bedroom, once an office, now a makeshift sleeping space with a hospital bed he refused to use. "Can't stand that contraption," he explained. "Makes me feel like I'm already dead." From a locked drawer, he withdrew a thick medical folder. "Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, diagnosed 3 months ago." I read through the documents, my stomach tightening. Oncologist notes, treatment recommendations, scan results. The story was unmistakably grim. "Maybe 2 months now," Victor added. "The last scan showed rapid progression." "Brady knows?" "Oh, they all know. His mother was at the diagnosis appointment. 2 days later, she started talking about needing a break from caregiving." His laugh held zero humor. 66 years old, claiming exhaustion while I'm dying at 78. The cruelty hit me like a punch. They abandoned you knowing you had only months left. "Weeks, more likely." Victor eased onto the bed. "But that's not the worst part. Check the medication list." I reviewed the prescriptions. Pain management, anti-nausea medication, digestive enzymes. "Now check the bathroom cabinet." Victor directed, "Compare what's there with what should be there." In the bathroom, I found disorganized pill bottles. As I examined them against the documentation, disturbing patterns emerged. The powerful pain medication had been refilled twice, but was nearly full. The expensive enzymes were half empty when they should be nearly untouched based on the refill date. "They've been diluting everything, 1 pill instead of 2, half doses of pain medication. And those palliative care appointments?" "Too expensive," Elaine said. My hands trembled with rage. "Victor, that's not neglect, that's abuse. It's what happens when people see you as an obstacle instead of a person." He pulled out a small notebook. "I've been documenting everything, missed medications, canceled appointments, money disappearing for supplies that never arrived." The meticulous record stunned me. Pages of dates, times, specific incidents. Despite his illness, Victor's mind remained absolutely sharp. Over a modest dinner, I prepared for my grocery run. Better than soup, though far from the feast I'd imagined. Victor asked me about my marriage. "When did you first notice Brady wasn't who you thought?" The question made me realize I'd been blind for years. It was gradual, I admitted. When we met, Brady was supportive. I had my own graphic design studio, good clients, close friends. I paused, recognizing how much had changed. After marriage, he suggested I work from home to save rent. Made financial sense. But then my equipment kept failing. Computer problems, software glitches. Victor nodded knowingly. Isolation tactic. Exactly. Then came suggestions about which clients weren't worth my time. Concerns about me being out late. He checked my phone, claiming he needed a number. The patterns were painfully obvious in hindsight. When my father died last year and left me $30,000, Brady insisted we put it in our joint account. For our future, for the house we'd buy. The money he just spent on a cruise with another woman, Victor said quietly. I set down my fork, appetite gone. 6 years of my life. Victor's story mirrored mine in ways that made my blood run cold. People like Brady and Elaine view relationships as transactions, Victor said. I learned too late. I was already successful when we met. Widowed, comfortable portfolio from my banking career. She was charming, beautiful. Brady was a teenager who seemed to need a father figure. He sighed heavily. After we married, expenses increased. Living the life we deserve, she'd say. When I tried to maintain boundaries, I became the villain. Stingy, controlling, not committed to family. That sounds painfully familiar, I whispered. After dinner, Victor led me to his study, now converted to a meditation space by Brady's mother, but still holding Victor's desk. Help me with that painting, he requested. Behind the mediocre landscape wasn't a safe, but a loose wall panel. Victor removed it and pulled out a weatherproof document case. My real assets. Elaine knows nothing about these. He spread the contents across the desk. Investment accounts, property in Vermont, Cayman Islands accounts from his banking days. I stared in shock. The amounts were substantial. Over $3 million in assets entirely separate from what the family could access. Brady and his mother have been siphoning from my known accounts for years, Victor explained. But this? Untouchable. I made certain of it. He pointed to a property deed. This house isn't in my name or Elaine's. It's owned by one of my holding companies. They think they're inheriting it. They're not. Does Brady know any of this? Not a hint. Even my attorney doesn't know everything. Only my financial advisor in Boston, sworn to secrecy. Victor's eyes held fierce determination. I always knew Brady's true character. He's exactly like his mother, charming while reaching for your wallet. I just never thought he'd do the same to his wife. Over the next 3 days, we built an ironclad case that would destroy them. The next morning brought Patricia Winters, Victor's attorney, a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair and penetrating green eyes. She arrived with a briefcase full of legal documents. So you're the abandoned daughter-in-law, she said, assessing me frankly. Victor called last night, said you were an unexpected ally. Over coffee, Patricia outlined Victor's legal strategy, documenting the neglect, changing his will, creating financial structures that would be ironclad against challenges. We need to finalize several documents, Patricia explained. Transfers requiring witnesses, medical powers of attorney, final will amendments. I offered to organize Victor's collected evidence. My graphic design background made me skilled at digital organization. Perfect, Patricia nodded approvingly. We'll need everything properly cataloged for when they contest the will. That evening, Victor pulled out an old photo album. Look at this, he said, pointing to teenage Brady with his mother behind him, whispering in his ear. He turned pages. Here's Brady's father before the divorce. Notice how miserable he looks. Elaine did to him what Brady's doing to you. Page after page revealed patterns I recognized from my own marriage. Subtle control, financial manipulation, the caring facade that dropped when money was involved. It's like watching my own life from outside, I whispered. Victor nodded with understanding. That's why we stopped them now, before they do this to someone else. Our alliance solidified into something deeper than convenience. We were two people betrayed by the same family, now united in seeking justice. We're not just getting revenge, Victor said, closing the album gently. We're making things right. I squeezed his thin hand. Yes, for both of us. We needed them to believe Victor was dying faster than he actually was, so we staged it. The next morning, I woke with renewed purpose. After checking on Victor, who was having a relatively good day, I laid out our strategy. First, we established the narrative of your rapid decline. Patricia's brother James owned a medical supply company. One call later, he arrived in an unmarked van with everything we needed: oxygen tank, IV stands, monitors, empty medication vials with realistic labels. Medical theater, James called it with a wink. Never thought I'd use my props for a real-life drama. We transformed Victor's bedroom into what appeared to be intensive home care. Oxygen prominently displayed, monitoring devices arranged dramatically, hospital-grade sheets completing the illusion. Now for photographic evidence, I said. Victor settled into bed, coaching me on lighting and angles. Shadows. Lighting from above deepens facial hollows. He removed his glasses, making his eyes appear sunken. We mussed his thin hair. With minimal theatrical makeup, I accentuated the pallor already present. The transformation was startling. In the photos, Victor looked actively dying, far worse than his actual condition. Now you, Victor directed. You need to look exhausted, overwhelmed. I removed makeup, tousled my hair, put on an oversized sweater. Victor photographed me apparently asleep in the uncomfortable chair beside his bed. Others showed me preparing medications with worried expressions. Perfect, he said, reviewing images. Who's our target? Brady's sister, Melissa. According to your phone, she's the only one who's checked on you. I crafted a carefully worded message with the photos. Victor had a difficult night. Fever spiked to 102, managing pain as best I can. Updates to follow. Melissa replied within minutes. Oh no, poor Uncle Victor. Keep me posted. Hook set, Victor murmured. Next came my Oscar-worthy performance. I called Brady's voicemail, knowing he wouldn't answer. Victor recorded everything. Brady, it's me again. I injected controlled panic into my voice. Victor's condition is deteriorating rapidly. The hospice nurse is concerned about his breathing. Please call back. I paused, adding a perfect tremor. I really need your support right now. I made similar calls every few hours, each message increasingly desperate, each carefully recorded. Between calls, I created detailed medical logs, temperature spikes, pain breakthroughs, respiratory difficulties. I backdated entries to create a consistent narrative starting before they left. You should have been an actress, Victor commented. I prefer creative nonfiction, I replied with a grim smile. Around 4 that afternoon, there was a knock. Mrs. Peterson from next door stood holding a casserole. Thought you might need dinner. Looking after Victor is full-time work. Over coffee, Mrs. Peterson became an unexpected goldmine. I've been watching that family for years. Your husband is no better than his mother. I don't mind you saying so, I assured her. I'm discovering exactly what family I married into. She patted my hand. Victor was so good to that boy. Paid for college. Bought his first car. And how does Brady repay him? By taking off on vacation while his stepfather is dying. I let genuine anger show. They left me a note, just a note. Shameful, Mrs. Peterson declared. The whole neighborhood's noticed. Last month when Victor fell in the yard, my herald helped him up. Brady was inside watching football, ignored our knocking completely. By the time she left, Mrs. Peterson had promised to spread word that Victor needed support while his family selfishly gallivanted in the Caribbean. I carefully documented her statements. The seer. Over the next 2 days, 5 more neighbors visited, each with stories of witnessing Brady's neglect. Each visit strengthened our case and provided witnesses to both Victor's apparent decline and the family's absence. On Saturday, Patricia returned with final documents for asset transfers. We drove Victor to his bank, where he'd been a customer for 30 years. The manager, Mr. Collins, greeted him warmly. In the manager's private office, Victor officially transferred control of his hidden assets to trusts benefiting me and several elder care charities. Mr. Collins watched sympathetically as Victor's shaking hand signed documents. Your stepson was in last week, the manager mentioned casually, asking about your accounts. I reminded him that without proper authorization, Victor smiled thinly. Always planning ahead, that boy. Another witness, another piece of evidence. That evening, we set the trap with a video call that would seal their fate. Victor's phone rang with a video call from Melissa. We quickly arranged Victor in bed, surrounded by medical equipment, oxygen cannula in his nostrils. I mussed my hair and pinched my cheeks to look stressed. When I answered, Melissa gasped. "Oh, Jade, you look terrible. Is everything okay?" "Managing," I said simply, turning the phone toward Victor, who gave an Oscar-worthy performance. Semi-conscious, breathing labored. "Uncle Victor?" Melissa called. "Can you hear me?" Victor's eyes fluttered weakly. "Melissa, that you, sweetheart?" Melissa's concern sounded genuine, but her next words revealed her true priorities. "Should we come home early? The thing is, these tickets were non-refundable, and Mom's been so stressed." I nodded understandingly while fighting disgust. "Of course. It's just that Victor keeps asking for Brady in his lucid moments." "I'll tell him to call," Melissa promised, "as soon as they get back from their shore excursion." After ending the call, Victor sat up and removed the cannula. "Did you record that?" I held up my other phone. "Every word." Victor's smile was satisfied but tinged with sadness. My family weighing cruise tickets against saying goodbye. I knew it would happen exactly like this. Sunday morning, something changed. Victor wasn't pretending anymore. I brought his morning tea and noticed his hands trembling more than usual, a bluish tint around his lips. "You don't have to pretend for me," I said softly. "You're really not well today." Victor's smile was thin but genuine. Ironic, isn't it? After all our acting, reality sneaks up. I called the hospice nurse, who promised to come that afternoon but advised me on comfort management in the meantime. Our revenge scheme suddenly felt secondary to ensuring his dignity. "What would you like for breakfast?" I asked. "Peaches," he said, surprising me. "Fresh peaches with cream. My late wife Martha made them every Sunday morning." I visited 3 grocery stores before finding decent peaches in November. When I prepared them as he described, Victor's eyes misted. "Just like she used to make," he whispered. "No one's bothered to remember such things about me in years." Throughout the day, I found myself doing things not for our plan, but simply for Victor's comfort. Adjusting pillows, reading aloud from his dog-eared Raymond Chandler, playing classical music he loved. The genuine care between us surprised me with its intensity. I haven't been treated with such kindness since Martha died 12 years ago. Strange how a stranger has shown me more compassion than my own family. The hospice nurse, Diane, arrived around 3. After examining Victor, she took me aside. "His organs are shutting down, happening faster than anticipated. I'd say hours, maybe a day at most." Though I'd known this was coming, the news hit harder than expected. "Should I call the family?" Diane shook her head. "At this point, it should be about his comfort, not theirs." After she left, Victor had overheard everything. "Don't call them. They made their choice. But we need to finalize matters." He reached for my hand. "Call Patricia. It's time for the final steps." Patricia arrived within the hour, bringing a notary named Thomas. Victor was remarkably alert, as if summoning his remaining strength. "Are you sure you're up to this?" Patricia asked, concerned. "More certain than ever," Victor replied. "Death clarifies priorities." They finalized the last paperwork, documents officially transferring control of his assets to me as trustee, with specifications for charitable donations to elder abuse prevention organizations. The new will explicitly mentioned Brady's abandonment as the reason for disinheritance. "Now for the letter," Victor said. What followed wasn't angry condemnation, but something far more powerful. Patricia set up her tablet to record as Victor dictated his message to the family. "To my family," he began, voice gaining strength. "By the time you read this, I will be gone. Not that my presence or absence seemed to matter much in recent years." He detailed specific instances without accusation, simply stating facts: holidays alone while they vacationed, medical appointments canceled, overheard comments about waiting for the old man to die. "I don't write from anger, but from clarity that comes when facing the end. The greatest pain in life isn't illness or death, but realizing those you loved saw you only as an obligation. an inconvenience to be tolerated. By the time he finished, even Thomas the notary was discreetly wiping his eyes. "We'll make sure they hear every word," Patricia promised. After they left, Victor asked for his old video camera. "They might question my mental capacity. I want to record my testimony while clearly lucid." He delivered a 20-minute statement directly to the lens, remarkably composed, methodically describing years of gradual neglect and his decision to leave his estate to me. "Jade showed me more dignity in 4 days than my family did in 4 years. She's the only one who earned the right to benefit from what I spent a lifetime building." The recording was devastating in its calm delivery of damning details. By evening, Victor's energy was fading. At his request, I helped him to his favorite chair by the window. "There's a bottle of port in my study," he said, "behind the economics textbooks. Martha and I were saving it for our 50th anniversary." I found the dusty bottle and poured crystal glasses I discovered in a neglected cabinet. "To justice," Victor said, raising his glass with effort. "To dignity," I added. We sat together as darkness fell, Victor occasionally dozing while I read to him. He spoke intermittently about Martha, about his early career, trips they'd planned but never taken. Not once did he mention Brady or his mother. Around midnight, everything changed. I noticed his breathing had shifted. I set my book aside and simply held his hand. There was no drama, no last-minute revelations. Victor simply slipped away, his hand growing cool in mine as his breathing gradually stopped. For a long moment, I sat motionless, tears streaming down my face. This man I'd known only 4 days had become profoundly important to me. In caring for him, I'd found strength and clarity I didn't know I possessed. At dawn, I called Diane, who arrived promptly to confirm what I already knew. "Many terminal patients show signs of distress," she commented. "He looks like he simply fell asleep." "He did," I said quietly. "Reading Raymond Chandler and drinking 50-year-old port." They were coming home expecting to find a dying man. Instead, they'd find justice. After the funeral home collected Victor's body, I allowed myself moments of genuine grief before focusing on the final phase. I placed Victor's letter in a cream envelope against the family photo on the mantelpiece, a photo where Brady and his mother smiled broadly while Victor stood slightly apart. In the dining room, I arranged the extensive documentation in clearly labeled folders: canceled appointments, financial exploitation, recorded evidence. Victor's video testimony was cued on the television, ready at the press of a button. I packed my few belongings. Beside my suitcase, I placed printouts of the cruise photos, creating a stark timeline contrasting their poolside cocktails with Victor's documented decline. Everything was arranged for maximum impact. Hook. "It's done, Victor," I said to the empty room. "They'll understand exactly what they've lost." Monday around noon, I heard car doors slamming, laughter, chatter. I smoothed down the simple black dress I'd purchased and positioned myself near Victor's empty rocking chair. The door burst open. Brady entered first, Elaine behind him, followed by Melissa and Hannah, all sunburned and smiling, arms laden with duty-free shopping bags. "Honey, we're home," Brady called cheerfully until he saw me. His smile faltered. "What's with the funeral get-up?" Elaine pushed past him. "Where's Dad? Napping." "Victor passed away Saturday night." The shopping bags in Brady's hands hit the floor. "What do you mean passed away?" Elaine demanded, as if I'd made a vocabulary error. "He died peacefully around midnight," I continued calmly. "The funeral was yesterday afternoon. Many neighbors attended, Victor's banking friends too. Quite a lovely turnout." Brady's face cycled through shock, disbelief, then calculation. "You held the funeral without us? Without his family?" "His family was invited. I left multiple messages about his declining condition. You chose not to respond." Melissa stepped forward, pale beneath her tan. "I told you, Brady. I said Uncle Victor looked really bad." Brady waved her off impatiently. "This is unbelievable." "Yes," I agreed. "We do need to sit down." They filed into the living room. Nobody wanted to sit in Victor's empty rocking chair. "There are things you need to know," I said, picking up the envelope. "Victor left this letter." Did he change his will? Elaine interjected bluntly. I met her eyes. Perhaps you should hear his words first. I began reading, and watched their world collapse with every sentence. Victor's disappointment flowed through my voice. Holidays spent alone, appointments canceled, overheard comments about waiting for him to die. The greatest pain in life is not illness or death, but realizing those you loved saw you only as an obligation to be managed, an inconvenience to be tolerated. Heavy silence filled the room when I finished. Look, Dad was confused, Brady finally said. His medication. Victor was perfectly lucid. I interrupted. In fact, he made a video statement you should see. This is ridiculous, Elaine declared. End-of-life ramblings don't change legal realities. Brady is next of kin. Actually, I said, standing, there's more you should see. I led them to the dining room where I'd arranged the evidence files. Brady's eyes widened at the meticulous documentation. What is all this? He demanded. Evidence of financial exploitation, medical neglect, abandonment. I opened the first folder, bank statements with highlighted transfers. Victor kept detailed records of every dollar taken for supposed care expenses that never materialized. Elaine snatched a statement. He gave us that money. By leaving him alone for Thanksgiving with inadequate medication, no food, and the heat at 62. I opened another folder. There are statements from 6 neighbors who witnessed his neglect. And then there's this. I pressed play on Victor's video testimony, and their faces went white. His calm, articulate description of years of mistreatment silenced even Elaine. Brady grew increasingly pale as Victor described specific incidents. Diluted medications, canceled appointments, disparaging comments made when they thought he couldn't hear. This is a setup, Brady finally sputtered. She manipulated a dying man. The doorbell rang. Perfect timing. Patricia stood on the doorstep, Notary Thomas beside her. Am I interrupting? She asked with professional coolness. Not at all. The family just returned and was reviewing Victor's final message. Excellent. Then I can proceed with official notification. Patricia placed her briefcase on the dining table and removed documents. As executor of Victor Harmon's estate, I'm here to inform you of the provisions of his final will and testament. Brady straightened, composing himself. A smug smile began forming. Fine, let's get to it. The will is quite straightforward. Victor Harmon has left the entirety of his estate to Jade Mitchell, with provisions for substantial donations to elder abuse prevention organizations. The stunned silence was broken by Elaine's shrill voice. That's impossible. We're his family. The will explicitly cites abandonment and neglect as reasons for disinheritance. Patricia continued calmly. It's been properly witnessed, notarized, and filed. Mr. Harmon was examined by 2 physicians who certified his mental competence. Brady's smugness evaporated. This is fraud. We'll contest it. You're welcome to try, Patricia replied, unfazed. However, given the extensive documentation, video testimony, and witness statements, I'd advise against it. You'd only be spending money you don't have. What do you mean money we don't have? Elaine demanded. Patricia glanced at me before continuing. The properties you occupy, including your primary residence, belong to the Harmon Family Trust, now under Jade's control. Furthermore, the investment accounts you've been drawing from are frozen pending audit for potential financial abuse. Brady's face drained completely. That's not possible. The house is mine. Dad promised. Victor promised nothing, I interjected. You assumed. There's a difference. The implications were sinking in. Brady had spent our savings on the cruise, counting on his inheritance to cover mounting debts. The house wasn't his to sell or borrow against. What about our college funds? Melissa asked in a small voice. Grandpa set those up. Brady couldn't meet his sister's eyes. Patricia answered gently. Victor provided funds for that purpose years ago. However, those accounts were never established. Melissa turned to Brady, horror dawning. You spent our college money. The family erupted into accusations. Hannah quietly slipped out. I stepped away to retrieve my suitcase. Brady followed me into the hallway, his demeanor completely transformed. Jade, please, he begged. We can work this out. Hannah didn't mean anything. We can start over. I'll change. I looked at this man I'd once loved, seeing him clearly for the first time. Behind the handsome features and practiced charm was someone who had never truly cared for anyone but himself. Calmly, I removed my wedding ring and placed it in his palm, followed by our apartment keys. You left him to die, I said quietly. Now you get nothing, including me. I walked toward the door, suitcase in hand. Brady's pleas turned to threats. You won't get away with this. I'll fight it. You manipulated a sick old man. At the doorway, I turned back briefly. Everything was done legally. You taught me one valuable lesson in our marriage, Brady. Always keep receipts. I stepped into bright November sunshine. Behind me, Brady's protests and Elaine's angry demands continued, but those voices were already fading, becoming part of a past I was leaving behind. Patricia had arranged the hotel room while I figured out my next steps. As I placed my suitcase in the trunk, Mrs. Peterson appeared on her porch across the street. She gave me a knowing nod and a small wave. I waved back, feeling a surprising lightness despite the emotional weight of the past few days. Hook! Victor's final gift wasn't just financial security, it was clarity. The true gift was the strength I'd found while helping him find justice. As I drove away from that house and the shattered family inside it, I wasn't thinking about revenge or vindication. I was thinking about second chances, about honoring Victor's memory by living well, about the unexpected bond that formed between two people who'd been discarded by those who should have cared for them most. Victor had found peace. Now it was my turn to do the same. What resonated most with you in this story? For me, it was that moment when Victor shared his cherished port wine, saved for an anniversary he never reached. Such bittersweet dignity in that single glass. Which scene touched your heart most deeply? The quiet moments of genuine care, the calculated justice, the final goodbye. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Every comment means the world to me.